In 1902, George Draper Dayton opened a dry goods store on Nicollet Avenue in Minneapolis that would eventually become Target Corporation, one of America's largest retailers. He was 45 years old, a former banker from upstate New York who had made his fortune buying farmland and real estate in Minnesota during the 1880s and the 1890s. George was a devout Presbyterian who initially wanted to become a minister but chose business instead. When the Westminster Presbyterian Church in Minneapolis burned down in 1893, George bought the empty corner lot for $165,000 to help the congregation rebuild. He constructed a 6-story building on the site and convinced a local department store called Goodfellow's to become his tenant. Within a year, he bought the store outright and renamed it Dayton Dry Goods Company. George ran the business according to strict religious principles. The store refused to sell alcohol, would not advertise in newspapers that sponsored liquor ads, and stayed closed on Sundays. Employees received candy from George personally on Christmas Eve. The approach did not hurt business. By the 1920s, the Dayton Company had become a multi-million-dollar operation. Annual sales grew from $600,000 in 1902 to $60 million by 1950. The downtown Minneapolis building expanded 8 times, eventually occupying 3/4 of a city block and rising to 12 floors. George gave away millions to charity, establishing the Dayton Foundation in 1918 with $1 million. When he died in 1938 at age 80, he left only a modest personal fortune, having donated most of his wealth during his lifetime. George's son Nelson took over the presidency in 1938, inheriting $14 million. Over the next 12 years, Nelson grew it into an enterprise worth $50 million. When he died in 1950 at age 63, his 5 sons inherited equal shares, each receiving 20% of the company. The brothers were young. Bruce, the second oldest, was just 31. Donald, Kenneth, Wallace, and Douglas joined him in collective leadership rather than appointing a single president. The brothers understood they faced a structural problem. Bruce Dayton later wrote that one department store was not big enough for 5 of them. If they stayed small, they would fight over control. If they grew the business, they could maintain family harmony while building wealth. They chose expansion. In 1956, they purchased 500 acres of cornfields in the suburb of Edina and built Southdale Center, the first fully enclosed 2-level shopping mall in the United States. The architect Victor Gruen discovered that Minneapolis had only 113 good shopping days per year because of harsh weather, so he put the entire mall under one roof. Southdale opened to immediate success and became the prototype for the American shopping mall boom of the next 3 decades. The Daytons made an unprecedented move by inviting their longtime downtown Minneapolis competitor, Donaldson's, to open a store inside Southdale. They controlled the real estate and competitors paid them rent. The year 1962 changed American discount retail forever. In May, the Dayton brothers opened the first Target store in Roseville, Minnesota, a suburb of St. Paul. That same year, Sam Walton opened the first Walmart in Arkansas, and Kmart began its national expansion under S.S. Kresge Company. 3 retail giants were born simultaneously, setting the stage for decades of competition. By the end of 1962, the Daytons had 4 Target locations. The concept was an upscale discount store, combining low prices with quality merchandise and clean, well-lit facilities. This distinguished Target from typical discount retailers of the era, which offered cut-rate goods in bare-bones environments. While Walmart focused on rural markets and Kmart emphasized urban locations, Target positioned itself as the sophisticated discount option. The brothers tested 18 different retail concepts over 2 decades. Some failed, but Target grew rapidly. In 1966, Bruce Dayton founded B. Dalton Bookseller, naming it after himself by replacing the Y in his surname with an L. At its peak, B. Dalton operated 798 locations and became the largest hardcover book retailer in the United States. The family's influence extended beyond retail. Mark Dayton, a great-grandson of George Draper Dayton, would later serve as governor of Minnesota from 2011 to 2019, and previously as a United States Senator, continuing the family's prominent role in Minnesota politics and society. By 1967, the Dayton brothers faced another structural challenge. They controlled a growing retail empire, but all the capital was locked inside the family business. If they wanted to fund further expansion, acquire competitors, or raise money for new ventures, they needed access to public markets. In 1967, the Dayton Corporation made its first initial public offering on the stock market. Outside investors could now buy shares. The company began paying dividends immediately and has increased those payments annually since 1972. Going public meant accepting a trade. The family gained access to Wall Street capital and could use stock to acquire other companies. In return, they diluted their ownership. Public shareholders now owned a piece of the business, and the family's percentage declined with every new share issued. In 1969, the Dayton Corporation merged with J.L. Hudson Company, a department store chain based in Detroit that had been in business since 1881. The combined entity became Dayton Hudson Corporation, the 14th largest retailer in the United States. Stock began trading on the New York Stock Exchange. The merger accelerated the transfer of ownership from the founding family to public shareholders. Dayton Hudson stock became a widely held security, owned by pension funds, mutual funds, institutional investors like Vanguard and BlackRock, and individual shareholders across the country. The Dayton brothers remained involved in management, but they no longer held majority control. Through the 1970s, Target became the company's dominant revenue source. In 1970, Target operated 24 stores and generated $200 million in sales. By 1975, Target had 49 stores and $511 million in revenue. That year, the Target discount chain became Dayton Hudson's top revenue producer, surpassing the original department stores. In 1976, Dayton Hudson ranked as the 8th largest retailer in the United States. Target reached $600 million in sales. By 1979, Target had grown to 80 stores with over $1 billion in revenue, while Dayton Hudson operated stores in 41 states. The company's profits in 1983 reached $243 million. In June 1983, Kenneth Dayton, the last of the 5 brothers still working at the company, announced his retirement. Bruce Dayton retired from the board of directors that same year. For the first time in 81 years, no member of the Dayton family held a position at the company George Draper Dayton had founded in 1902. The family had not sold the business in a single transaction. They had diluted their ownership gradually through public stock offerings, stock-based acquisitions, and stock compensation for executives and employees. By 1983, professional managers who were not related to the Dayton family controlled day-to-day operations. Public shareholders, not the Daytons, elected the board of directors. The family retained wealth through their remaining stock holdings, but they no longer ran the company or determined its strategy. Dayton Hudson continued expanding. In 1990, the company acquired Marshall Field's department stores in Chicago for $1 billion, adding 24 locations. By the late 1990s, Target had become so dominant within the corporate structure that company leadership made a decisive choice. In January 2000, Dayton Hudson Corporation officially changed its name to Target Corporation. Management acknowledged that Target stores generated 80% of total revenue, and that the Target brand was better known nationally than Dayton Hudson. The name change signaled that the original Dayton's department stores, which had been the foundation of the family's wealth, were now secondary assets within a discount retail conglomerate. In 2001, all Dayton's and Hudson's stores were rebranded as Marshall Field's in an effort to create a unified national department store presence. The Dayton name disappeared from retail storefronts for the first time since 1903. In 2004, Target Corporation sold the entire Marshall Field's chain to May Department Stores Company. The company also sold Mervyn's, a California-based retailer it had acquired in 1978 for $1.65 billion. In 2005, May Department Stores merged with Federated Department Stores, the parent company of Macy's. Marshall Field stores were rebranded as Macy's later that year. The retail chain George Draper Dayton had built in downtown Minneapolis, and which his sons and grandsons had expanded across the Midwest, ceased to exist under its original identity. By 2015, when Bruce Dayton died at age 97, Target Corporation operated nearly 1,800 stores and employed hundreds of thousands of workers. The company generated over $100 billion in annual revenue and had become a component of the S&P 500 index. Bruce was the last surviving member of the five Dayton brothers. Donald had died in 1989, Wallace in 2002, Kenneth in 2003, and Douglas in 2013. According to Forbes, the extended Dayton family, now numbering 92 members, held a collective net worth of $1.6 billion, ranking them 157th among America's richest families. The family managed their wealth through an investment firm called Okabena. That $1.6 billion, divided among 92 people, represented the financial legacy of a company that now generates $105 billion in annual revenue and is valued at $48 billion on the stock market. The transfer of ownership from the Dayton family to public shareholders happened incrementally over decades. It was not a sale, a bankruptcy, or a hostile takeover. It was the result of strategic decisions made by the family to access capital, fund growth, and compensate management. Each decision was rational at the time. Going public in 1967 through their initial public offering provided money for expansion. Merging with Hudson's in 1969 created scale. Selling stock to acquire other companies avoided debt. Issuing stock options to retain talented executives aligned incentives. But each decision diluted the family's stake. By the time the last Dayton family member retired from the board in 1983, the family no longer controlled the company, even though they still owned shares. The Dayton family's collective net worth of $1.6 billion ranks them among America's wealthiest families. By any reasonable standard, they are financially secure. Their political influence continues through Mark Dayton's governorship and ongoing civic engagement. But Target Corporation, the company George Draper Dayton founded in 1902, and his descendants transformed into a national retail giant, is worth $48 billion on the stock market and generates $105 billion in revenue annually. The Daytons built it. They no longer own it. The wealth they created now belongs to the public markets. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. What other family-built businesses eventually transferred to public ownership? Let me know in the comments.